Joining me now in a group chat on a Friday, Kevin Frey, Washington correspondent for Spectrum News, New York 1, Rob Bluey, president and executive editor of The Daily Signal, and New York Times journalist and podcast host Lulu Garcia-Navarro. So this is one of those things where when you exit a job, which I feel like is the safest term I can use right now, is like, is it a promotion? Is it a lateral move? Is it a demotion? And a lot of this has to do with the fact that, like, what does a Trump administration think of the UN, right? Like, well, this isn't exactly.
Oh, okay. There's nothing else that we can say here
in the chat. She says demotion.
Let's be clear. This is our job as journalists to call things as they are.
But it's not a firing, which clearly the White House did not want to do.
It's not a firing, but the UN job is not exactly like primo territory. It's also Senate confirmed, and I have to say Democrats are rubbing their hands in glee because they want to get Waltz sitting in front of them to be able to grill him, so there's going to be a spectacle
we're
there.
We're going to keep hearing about Signal Chat forever.
Yeah, this is not.
Rob Bluey, demotion, promotion, lateral move.
Probably more of a lateral move or demotion. I think it's a stretch to call it a promotion. Conservatives, as you know, have long disliked the United Nations. I mean, it's not necessarily a place that you aspire to go. But I do think that there's something here at play beyond Signal. And I think that there was probably misalignment between the National Security Advisor and Trump. This is what
the reporting there is between them and also Susie Wiles, right? That there his power in the White House was wobbly.
But his outlook at a time when Trump is taking a more restrained position when it comes to foreign policy, perhaps Mike Waltz was a little too hawkish, and that displeased some people within the White House.
Right. I think he was somebody who was talking about support for Ukraine, right? Right in a moment where the White House wanted more negotiating room with them. Okay, so you guys are joking about this gig. However, there are people who wanted this gig.
Yeah.
People in New York,
yes.
Other Congress people.
One in particular. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik already was clearly very frustrated, as has been reported multiple times over the week.
So she was the initial choice for UN ambassador.
Was the initial choice for UN ambassador, went through the confirmation hearing, was basically on a glide path to getting confirmed, likely with bipartisan support in the U.S. Senate, which we know is not necessarily an easy feat nowadays. And yet, because of the numbers in the House, she was basically asked to take one for the team, at least that's how she's presenting it, and stick around in the U.S. House of Representatives. Keep in mind,
pass over one.
Pass over one.
Now, number two.
Well, I was going to say, keep in mind, she has really spent the last 5-6 years being one of Trump's most outspoken defenders publicly on the national stage, going back to his first impeachment. She has latched herself to him and really has seen her star power rise as a result of that. So she has really given a lot to the Trump camp. Now she's been passed over for that. She gets thrown back into the House of Representatives, still hasn't been added to the Intel Committee because they don't know how to figure out how to get her on there. And she's been given kind of this obscure title that isn't really in the chain of command, but also as part of the chain of command, as part of being back in the House leadership. And then you throw in one of the other Republicans that left the House to only tighten the margins further, which was why she wasn't allowed to leave anyway, is now going to get potentially the job that she was supposed to
All right,
get.
So the shock of all this is that I haven't had a version of this conversation about 5 other jobs, right? When you think about the first Trump administration, so many people passing out. That is just not the case this time around. It is a much more stable cabinet. He feels very strongly about the people he has in place. Vice President Vance was talking about, was being asked about Pete Hegseth, right? Because at the end of the day, he's the one who shared plans on this Signal Chat. And here's what he had to say about whether the defense secretary's job is safe.
Is Pete Hegseth safe as defense secretary? Are there other changes coming?
Well, again, I think certainly yes, Pete Hegseth is safe.
Are we surprised?
I think Pete Hegseth is safe. I mean, Pete Hegseth obviously went through a contentious...
Is it because of his support within the party itself or Trump himself?
Oh, sure. I think both, Audie. I mean, I think that's clear. I think also Pete Hegseth is clearly aligned with Trump and the policy agenda that he wants to see implemented, and also the personnel side. They've stood by Pete Hegseth not only through a very contentious confirmation process, but obviously in the weeks that follow. And Pete Hegseth has shown some results. I mean, military recruiting is way up under Pete Hegseth's leadership.
Wait a second. Military recruiting is way up, but it has been growing under the Biden administration. this is not something that he can solely take credit for, even though he is taking credit for that, and even though the president is taking credit for that. What I would say about Pete Hegseth is the following. I think he is safe. You're absolutely right. I think he's shown himself to be utterly loyal, and that is what we're seeing in this new cabinet. Loyalty is what matters.
Is that why
not
Marco
results.
Rubio now has 4 jobs?
Exactly.
Okay, just so people know, he's Secretary of State, acting National Security Advisor, acting USAID Administrator, which is really kind of, it's gutted, so that's not much of a job, and then also acting National Archivist.
But I do think that this relationship now between Rubio and Hegseth will be quite interesting. Remember, the National Security Advisor in some cases was a referee between the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense, so now that Rubio has both jobs.
This has not happened, as we know, since the Nixon administration.
Did John Bolton do this, though? Also?
No, not have both. No. This has not literally happened since the Nixon administration, where you have the Secretary of State also being the National Security Advisor. It was Kissinger, I think, who held those 2 roles. It was, by all accounts, I wasn't alive then, disastrous. And so this is going to be very interesting. These are big jobs.
Yeah.
I don't know how, Secretary Rubio is a very smart man, very capable former senator, but these are big jobs.
And now
so,
he is the one to watch.
Yeah.
Group chat, stay with me. We've got lots more to talk about. Okay, so first let's just take on the legacy, so to speak. Musk is claiming $160 billion in estimated savings, obviously with a lot of cuts, but that is way less than was promised. Rob, is it considered a success?
So far, yes. I would say, remember, Doge's work isn't going to be completed until July 4th of 2026. We're only 100 days in. So comparatively, when you go back decades and look at the failure of anyone, whether it be in the presidential administration or Congress, to reduce the size of government, you have to go back to, Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich when they had a balanced budget? I'd say yes.
So to you, it was like a necessary fire starter.
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to talk about how Elon Musk thinks of himself. This is from the Washington Post. Asked who would lead it when he fades, he demurred, "Is Buddha needed for Buddhism? Was it not stronger after he passed away?"
I just want to sit with that for a moment.
Yeah, let's hold space for
Let's
that.
hold space for that. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, that aside, I think in response to what you were saying, is it a success? If you consider slashing and burning the federal government with very little oversight and no sense of what comes after that, what is necessary or unnecessary, then perhaps it is a success. If you actually think that what was necessary is perhaps a scalpel and not a machete, or in his case, what was it that he was holding up? The chainsaw.
Yeah.
Then perhaps not. There is no question that what Elon Musk managed to do, no one thought he was going to be able to do. I remember talking about this before the administration came in, and
You mean just the number, the
no,
target,
just,
or just the whole way?
That everyone had tried
Yeah.
this, that his role, that he was going to get bogged down, that it was just never going to, that all the sort of red tape of and bureaucracy of the government wasn't actually going to be able to be cut. And of course he's managed to go through that. But in the meantime, there are all these questions about what he actually has achieved, who he has put in there, what kind of control he now has over our information, data that is super sensitive. All of this stuff, there's no transparency, and it's deeply worrying to the American people. We've seen that over and over
Yeah.
again. He's not fading off into the sunset, I think, because he wants to.
It's
He is
because
deeply
it's taking out
unpopular.
the other businesses,
And
right?
also, he's deeply unpopular. He's a political liability, except for diehard MAGA
You're talking
people.
about what he leaves behind. I do have to note that Doge's most infamous staffer, known by the online moniker Big Balls, revealed himself in an interview on Fox last night. Take a look.
Who's Big Balls?
It's big.
What does Big Balls do?
Right now, I'm working on some payment computer stuff. So one of our initiatives is to root out fraud and waste.
So here are the people who will be left behind, and I think this is significant because I don't think this is a chapter closing, right, between the things you mentioned, surveillance, and I think if you're another president or waiting in the way if you're thinking about it, you're like, ooh, I can create an agency out of whole cloth and have them like just kind of meddle around. I mean, it's very enticing, the power that they have displayed in these last couple of weeks.
Well, I would also say that I don't think Elon Musk is going away in the sense that he's going to be a bogeyman for the Democrats for the next year and a half.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
we're gonna
he
keep
is
hearing
very
about him.
easily
Yeah.
identifiable by Democrats. They have made the economy, they have made the billionaires don't care about you really their mantra heading into next November. And whether or not you think that's a fair assessment, that's what they're arguing. And so
because, as
having
Lulu said, he is unpopular. Like
Correct.
his numbers
That's
are low.
worked. That argument has worked.
it's worked, and I guess the question is, if he does pull back a little bit,
Yeah.
does the salience of that go away? That's kind of the outstanding question.
All right, you guys, thanks for sticking with us. We've got more to discuss. The group chat is back. Kevin, I want to start with you because you cover delegations. You know, sometimes you just got to like get money, right? When there's disasters,
No,
when there's
absolutely.
problems. And I've been interested in how this has played out in a more punishing way in this environment as Democrats are trying to figure out what to do.
I mean, I think it would be a little different if she wasn't considered kind of one of the tier of potential presidential candidates. I mean, there is definitely, as you just noted, a degree to which you have to work with the federal government to get resources for your state. In this case, it was some sort of investment, I think, at a military base. And so there's a degree of, if I can deliver for my state, does that reflect well on me back home? However, in this heightened political environment we're in, where every single photo, especially the one of her holding the binder in front of her face, I mean, you can see that in a campaign ad in a Democratic primary.
But I thought it was a selling point that you could work across the aisle.
There's, it's so interesting. Governors are really, Democratic governors are really kind of going in two directions. Some, like Gretchen Whitmer, and if you remember in the first Trump administration, that was not her tone. She was very combative with President Trump. In this one, she is adopting a very different posture, unlike J.B. Pritzker, someone else who is discussed, the governor of Illinois, as a potential 2028 Democratic primary candidate for the presidency, who's being very combative. I mean, these are two very different ways of trying to position themselves in what is a difficult moment for them.
Let me
They need
illustrate
the
your
federal
point, because
government.
Pritzker was at, Newsom, well, I mean, he's podcasting his way through it, but Pritzker, who you mentioned, was actually on Kimmel last night. Here's how he talked about the president.
At this point, we've got an authoritarian in office. He's essentially tearing apart the things that really matter to working families across the United States, and nobody's stopping him. So we've got to be out there loud, proud, stand up, speak out. It's May Day, everybody. I mean, it is literally, yeah, it is.
I feel like what made Trump distinct was not playing nice. He looked at all the Bush era Republicans and he was like, that's nice for you. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to basically punch people in the face rhetorically. So, but now we're seeing Democrats, right, try and lean in. So which one of these paths are you thinking about?
Well,
Rob?
the American people want to fight her. I think that the energy that you see with Bernie Sanders and AOC, that is an example of probably where there's enthusiasm on the left. However, I do think, to your point, there's a situation where you have those who are tacking to the left and there's who are trying to go more toward the middle. I think Gretchen Whitmer realizes Donald Trump won Michigan twice.
She's in a swing state.
Exactly.
And she's got to convince Republicans or soft Republicans or independents that she is someone who can actually work across the aisle. It's
And
just
that's
a
where the
very
votes are,
different.
right? Yeah.
It's just a very different idea of what's going to happen. However, we all know primaries are where everyone fights it out with each other.
Yeah,
and
we're in the
this
earliest
is where,
days.
We're in the earliest days of this.
Sorry, folks in the middle. It's going to be a minute till anyone wants to hear from us. Okay, so now it's time to talk about what we're keeping an eye on today. Looking ahead, I know that, Lulu, are you interested in the world of tech?
I am. I am very interested in Mark Zuckerberg's idea of what the American man in particular needs and wants at this point.
Wait, I have it for you because I knew you were excited about this.
Okay, let's watch.
It's already one of the main things that we see people using Meta AI for is kind of talking through difficult conversations that they need to have with people in their life. It's like, okay, I'm having this issue with my girlfriend or whatever. Like, help me have this conversation.
Yeah, okay.
I
well,
needed the look. I needed the look.
No, no. The glasses,
We
the
did it.
AI
We did
glasses,
it.
all of it. He says the average American has 3 friends but has demand for 15. And he thinks AI bots are going to fill that need. So we're going to now have AI bots filling the need of friendship. Not only everything else, our jobs,
Okay.
everything else, but now our friends to AI bots if Mark Zuckerberg has his way.
Rob Bluey.
Yeah, we should also note that Mark Zuckerberg's Meta AI was sued for defamation this week by Robbie Starbuck for getting some egregious things wrong. But I'm keeping an eye on the Kentucky Derby, Audie, because there are 2 horses, one called Journalism, another called Publisher, that are
Sorry,
running in the race.
journalism. Spoiler
Journalism's
alert.
the favorite.
Okay, Kevin.
A little less fun. I'm keeping my eye on state and local tax deduction talks on Capitol Hill. This is a very New York topic, but it could be really the House. It could determine if this House of Cards that is the reconciliation package lives or dies, depending on how these conversations go over the next couple days.
Like a poison pill. Thank you to the group chat.